So, first of all, I'm kind of a one-take person, not a YouTuber, so sorry if this is awkward. My dogs are walking around behind me. Um, I made a video some years ago about my mum's death, and it's been nearly 5 years since my mum died. She passed away on September the 9th, 2013. I've been thinking about it quite a bit lately. I guess because we're coming up to the 5-year mark. I try not to place too much importance on dates, because the way I think about it is I could be sad at any time about mum's death. The date's just, it's like a concept that we, have made up. I could say it's been like 300 days and 5 hours and 20 minutes and 9 seconds since some shit happened in my life, but does it really matter, With that being said, though, I still feel the weight of it sometimes, and I've been feeling the weight of the 5-year mark coming up. I think it's because so much has happened in that time, and it's just nuts to think it's been 5 years, even though a lot's changed that I won't get into because it's personal and it'd be weird for me to talk about. Not that many people will watch this. I still feel weird putting it out online. But the reason why I'm talking about it is because when Mum died, I just can't even put into words how much it messed with me. I felt just... can't even tell you how I felt. It was the worst experience of my life, the way it made me feel for such a prolonged period of time. And even though you see other people around you mourning, and you've got family member who are experiencing the same thing, you can still feel so alone in it. And I think, all right, dogs, can we not? I think one of the problems is that the world just keeps. Come here, mate. Come on. The world just keeps going on. I remember that morning after she was pronounced dead, and I stayed with her body for, I don't know, maybe an hour or so. I was with her body after she was pronounced dead. I remember just looking out my window and seeing cars drive to work early in the morning, and thinking how bizarre it is that everything's just going to keep going on. Like, the biggest event had just happened in my life. And if you don't already know about it, you're welcome to go back and watch my other video, or if you want to send me a message, I can tell you a summary. But I guess a quick version is she died in her sleep from cardiomyopathy, and I was with her for 2 hours. I don't know if she was completely dead when I got to her. There was 2 hours nearly of ambulance people working on her. It was probably an hour and a half, but with all the other shit thrown into it, like finding her and calling up the 000 and waiting for them to get there, and then that sort of period after where they said there's nothing more we can do, and I was standing around it. I don't know, man, it was hard, it was really early morning. Just got on a tangent and forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, it was just fucking difficult. And it's the type of thing that pretty much everyone goes through that type of thing in their life. They'll lose someone that they really care a whole lot about, and they'll experience that emotional trauma of having to go through life when someone they've loved has died, and they'll look outside and go, shit, everything's moving on. The world doesn't stop, even though it feels like your world has come to an end. And that just really tripped me out. I remember that afternoon meeting up with 2 people I was really close with, and standing out the front of my sister's house waiting for them to come pick me up, and just looking at all the traffic going by, thinking these guys have gone to work all day, they're coming back now, parents are picking their children up from school, and my mum died, and I I just can't believe it actually happened. I can't believe that right now she's in a morgue in Melbourne somewhere, and I'm just hoping that they call me up and say we made a mistake. She's not dead. She woke up. And holding on to so much hope, and like, because of can we not? Come on. Hey, come on, mate. Come on. And yeah, it's such a rough feeling. Like, I just remember for the longest time after Mum died, wishing that it wasn't real, wishing that it was some terrible dream that I would wake up from, or coming up with these ridiculous theories in my head that I knew logically were completely false. I knew that she had died, 100% logical, but the emotions took over, and the denial, and the need and want for her to be alive. And I'd think of these ridiculous ideas like, oh, maybe she's living somewhere else. Like, maybe she's gone over to Tasmania and she's like living this life out there and she's really happy and she's doing okay. Even though that would make no sense whatsoever. I would be standing in my kitchen looking out the window, you know, washing dishes, something like that, and just imagine her walking around the corner and how I would react and feel, and just hoping so badly that she'd just walk back into my life. I'd be in public and I'd see mums bonding with their kids and just think, wow. Oh, like, I miss that so much, and I just wish Mum would be back. And now it's been nearly 5 years since she died, and a lot of those feelings have disappeared now. Like, I know that that's never going to happen. I know that logically, and I know that emotionally. So I don't really have those daydreams anymore. But I still feel that horrible, deep pain in my chest where I just wish she was back. And sometimes when I'm trying to fall asleep at night, I'll be half asleep, and then all of a sudden it just hits me that my mum's dead. And it hits me what I had to go through when she died. And the fact that she was only 52 and all she wanted to do was keep living. And all of a sudden I'll just feel the worst pain in my chest, and it's weird. It's weird going from a time where all I felt was pain. The way I described it at the time was I felt like a zombie. Like I could barely function. I'd go out in public. I'd say this was mostly the first 3 months after Mum died. I mean, really, I was a zombie for a few years. But the first 3 months, I really felt like I was barely functioning. I'd do something basic like go to an appointment, go to do grocery shopping, just go for a walk, take the dogs out, and someone would maybe stop me to talk to me, and I'd kind of just be functioning enough to talk to them and seem normal, but I did not feel normal inside. I was having terrible flashbacks of watching her die, and I just couldn't comprehend the fact that that's it for this lifetime. She wouldn't be here anymore on a physical level. And yeah, so that pain gets to me sometimes. I definitely felt it today. I felt pretty sad today, really. But it's completely normal. It's such a roller coaster. And if you lose somebody that you care about and you're close to, you're going to experience everything. All of the possible feelings. And it's going to feel like absolute shit sometimes. But what I can say, despite all of this, is that it really does improve over time. I know that for anyone still watching, it might seem like this is quite depressing and like I'm still, really fucked up over it. But it absolutely gets better over time. At this point, I'm not constantly having flashbacks. I can't remember the last time I had a flashback where I was standing there doing my own thing and all of a sudden I'm back where I'm in the room where Mum died and I'm watching her pass away and I'm watching the ambulance members work on her. That used to happen a lot, and that barely happens now. I used to be so scared and just freaked out and fucked up. Like, coming back to my own house at night. I still live in the same house, by the way. I'd feel panic driving up my street and into my driveway, just thinking about how Mum died here and all the little details involved in that, and the fact that they had to wheel her body out through the front door and drive her down the end of my street, and just all these random details that, like, unless you've gone through this, you probably wouldn't even consider those things. You'd probably think, oh, that's weird, why would you think about that? But I was just so haunted by it. I had such a hard time going into the end of my house that it all happened in for the longest time. It brought so much panic to me, like emotional, and it would manifest physically. I would get faint and I'd want to vomit. I just felt like I couldn't stand to be in that area. I just want to run away because it freaked me out so much. There's a few, I think I talked about it in my other video, but there's a few places within my house where, like, the most happened, if that makes sense. Like, that night, that's where, like, my mum's body would have been, for example, and that's where she would have been worked on. And so I just had this strong association with that area. And for probably like 2 years, I just wanted to move houses. And like when I'd be vacuuming the floors, for example, I'd vacuum everywhere, but I would never walk on those areas that I felt were affected, so to speak, because it just freaked me out so much. And now at this point, sometimes I notice that momentarily I forget, and I'll step on those areas or walk through those areas that I know really traumatic things happened. I always think about it when I go up to that end of my house where everything happened. It's like always in my mind. It's weird, like I never forget about it. It always pops into the front of my mind, and almost like a little bit of dialogue, like, Mum died there. But now it's at the point where most of the time I can just acknowledge that thought and let myself continue on with whatever I was going to do, instead of sort of getting sucked into it and having awful flashbacks and letting it ruin my day. I can kind of just be like, oh, that's a thought, and just sort of let it drift through my mind and go on to whatever I need to do, like grab something from the room up there. I have noticed that it's been probably the last year or so, I do not particularly enjoy having to be exactly in those places where, like, mum died and where her body was for a while, but I can tolerate it. There was a time where it just freaked me out so much and I couldn't stand it. I'd be in such a panic if I accidentally, like, stood there or something, and now I'm not like, wow, yay, let's go stand there, this was fucking great, but it's not the end of the world anymore. It seems like with time that trauma's just diminished a bit. I must sound like such a fruitcake to anyone who hasn't had someone die. It sounds like the fruitiest stuff. But I promise you, if you ever go through it, these are things that, like, will probably affect you. It's stuff that I never really considered before Mum actually died. I didn't know I'd be so disturbed by certain things. And this is something I told some people around me when they'd ask me questions or the topic would come up. Prior to Mum dying, I was actually quite, at risk of sounding weird, I was, like, open to death, learning about it. Just, I don't know. I don't really want to say morbid curiosity, because I wasn't like, oh, how interesting. Like, I just have a morbid curiosity. I think for me it was just like, well, this is a part of life, and I was introduced to death from a very young age, and instead of shielding myself from it and allowing myself to only be upset by the concept of death, there's a huge bird, I wanted to get a better understanding of it. having pets when I was a kid that passed away, having my grandma pass away at a young age, and I saw some people who were so terrified of death that I didn't want to be like that, because I knew it's just a part of life, Everything dies everyone dies in the end. That's what you are guaranteed in life for certain. However, when Mum died, none of that mattered, none of that applied. Even the physical stuff. Like, I had a very hard time looking at her when I walked into her room and I saw her not responding. I looked at her face, I think twice, when I first walked in, and then after she'd been pronounced dead. And that traumatized the hell out of me, seeing her just not responding. And as far as horrible, morbid, gory things go, it wasn't particularly gory, it's just like, imagine if someone fainted, discoloration, and maybe their eyes are glassy. Well, not if they fainted, but like, I don't know, if you've ever seen someone who's dead and they just like recently died, they'll have glassy eyes and like discolored skin, and maybe their eyes are open. So it's not particularly great to look at, it's not wonderful, but it's manageable for me anyway. But when I saw it happen to Mum, it was just the absolute worst thing. I had nightmares about it for quite a while. I remember one morning, not morning actually, it was like probably 3 a.m. or something. I woke up screaming, literally screaming, because I just had a dream that Mum died in front of me. As an adult, I've never actually woke myself up screaming. I was screaming Mum. I'm really thankful that I'm not dealing with that on such a regular basis anymore. The trauma of how it all was on a physical level. And now it is mostly the emotional scars that I deal with. On a day-to-day basis, I try not to think too deeply about it all. I try to just go on with my life, because part of the healing has everything to do with time, and the fact that I've had all this time to get my head around it and do things with my life and have positive experiences, meet new people, travel places, do different things for work, just stuff that like adds up over time that helps. You have something traumatic happen here, you do all this stuff, and then all of a sudden you're here. It helps you separate yourself from that. But yeah, that's something that's helped too, not just time, just getting out and living life and doing stuff. And there were times where that was really, really difficult, after Mum died, I didn't do any paid work for 3 months. I did volunteer work because that's what I could handle. I just couldn't possibly put myself in a position where someone was paying me to work, because I didn't know when I'd break down. I didn't know when I'd have a flashback. There was a period of time where I just honored the fact that I had to just get through life. I had to do what I had to do to survive. I could wake up, eat a little bit of food, take my dogs for a walk, see some family, sleep. There really wasn't much to my life for a while, because that's what I had to do to get through my day. But then over time, that initial shock diminished a bit, and then I could encourage myself to go do more. It was simple stuff at the start. It was like going for a skate outside. It was catching up with someone and not just talking about Mum's death. It was going, I don't know, to the ice skating rink or something with them and just hanging out, going out and having some lunch. And then it was picking up studies, and it was getting a new job, and it was getting a girlfriend, and it was booking in a holiday. by myself to go somewhere. And I think it's just really important, if you go through this sort of thing, to really look into yourself and listen to yourself and feel what you need. Just looking into the concept of self-care has been really helpful, and just recognizing how important it is, and that there's no shame in needing to take time out for yourself. Even now, you know, even 5 years on, we all have our own problems, and there is no point going through life just ignoring whatever bad feelings you have inside of yourself and thinking, oh, I'll just push them in deeper and I won't address how I feel at all. I'll just keep going. There's no point doing that. If you want to sort of live an authentic life in which you're the happiest and most comfortable you can be. And I know for me, my mum would have wanted that for myself, and that's what she showed me when she was alive. She just wanted me to be happy and comfortable. She wanted me to treat myself like I treat people close to me, you know. She didn't want me to bully myself. So whether it's something like you've had a family member die, you're going through some other hardship, I really suggest just looking into self-care and listening to yourself. You know, what can you do to make yourself feel better? And what are you doing in your life that is destructive, that might make you feel better, but in the long run, it's not good for you? You know, taking drugs, drinking, binge eating, whatever it may be. This video has been really all over the place. I've kind of waffled a bit here and there, and I don't have a script, obviously, but I really hope that the right people come across this. If it's just one person, I found it very helpful hearing other people's honest accounts of what they've been through after Mum died, whether that was face-to-face or online. There were some conversations I had and things people said to me that they probably don't even know had that much of an impact on me, but were just so helpful. And I really insist that people let an experience like this soften them rather than make them more hard-hearted. That's something that I set out to do, and I still struggle sometimes, you know. Instead of just, I don't know, embracing the fact that I'm sad some days and I should go get support and like be around people and be around my family and friends and that sort of thing, sometimes I'll just be like, nah, I just want to stay here and not talk to anyone. But it's something that I think people should always work on. If you have any questions, then feel free to talk to me. But thank you for watching this video.